Alright, hello everyone, Internet Tomato here. This is going to be a very quick episode. So, somebody told me about something that happens when you enter the second act that I didn't do. I'm very curious about. Some of you already know what this is going to be, but I'll leave it as a surprise. The other thing is that they have added to the game more Arthur Whispers. That is incredibly important for me with the lore and all that, because they've already added new stuff in the lore with the Whispers. So I need to know if there's anything important for the lore, because I want to make sure everything's accurate, or as accurate as I can be. And yeah. So, hope you guys have been doing good. I've been using one-handed weapons lately, because I kind of maxed out my experience with my two-handed, so want to do that with one-handed now. Actually, how close am I? I haven't looked back in a while. Strength 83, so we're getting there. Unarmed, that 10 blocking. I think I've blocked once. A good offense is a strong defense. Anyway, we're first going to do this. Go in here, and we're going to just explore around. And yeah, I missed you guys. I missed doing Tainted Grail, or this Tainted Grail. I really like this game. I love the aesthetics. I love the look. I love Croakmaw. Yeah. Anyway, let's get going. Also, by the way, I'm probably going to do another playthrough when 1.1 comes out. I'll want to do at least something different enough that it's not going to be the same thing. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that, but yeah. I'll probably be trying to get your guys' advice eventually on how to get that done. So all we gotta do is go over here.
I'll face every threat.
Dead. Nice. Now, this might not be possible. Yeah. Yep, it's not possible. Okay, well, I'll tell you what I was going to do, guys, because I apparently can't do it. I wasn't sure. There wasn't too much information on it. However, I'll tell you guys why I came down here. In the game, which maybe, so kind of spoilers ahead if you're planning on playing this on your own, but there's a sleeping Croakmaw that sleeps right here. And if you, I guess that he doesn't respawn, because I haven't killed him in probably 20 in-game days, something like that. So he would have respawned by now, because I think it takes him like 2 or 3 typically for a typical enemy. But anyways, you'll find him here sleeping, and if you walk up to him, you can actually pet him. So you pet the sleeping Croakmaw, and then the Croakmaw eats your arm, and then you never get that arm back. So you're just stuck being one-handed, one-armed through the entirety of the game after that point. You can't get it back. A lot of people are very frustrated with that. I will say reasonably so. I think that there should be a way to get it back. Or they should give you some kind of a bonus or something for losing your arm for the entire game. But anyways, that's it. The other thing I wanted to do, I can't do it here. I think I have to wait for Weird Night. Let's double check. Nope, I can talk to Arthur now. So, also I want to see his face. Let's find some flat land. But yeah, so the other thing I wanted to do is just talk to Arthur for a little bit, because he has new whispers. Very excited for that. Those are the only two things to really do. I know there's a couple of like tiny quests I haven't done, but not particularly important. Alright. We'll go here. A nice view. Alright, Arthur. Let's talk. Whoa! Oh my gosh. Okay. Look at all of this. Alright, well, I need to talk to him about all of this, because this is all important. You gotta be kidding me. This is so much. Okay, well, buckle in. If you guys aren't interested, I totally understand. You can wait for the lore videos for the things that are valuable. About Kai, this is so important. Tell me.
My sister. I didn't think I'd ever see her again. She was gone. I've always felt like I failed her. I was her older brother, and it was my responsibility to protect her. And yet, she ended up taking care of me. And she paid dearly for it.
Okay. Kai's life back in the homelands didn't seem very happy. How do you feel about Kai being the prophet for the Red Church?
I'm still not sure. Kai always stepped into whatever role was needed and made it fit her perfectly. Blind devotion was never something she sought, but if she thought it served a purpose, I know she wouldn't hesitate. I want to see her only as my beloved sister, but that was never all she was.
Kai's life back in the homelands didn't seem very happy.
A half-sibling is only halfway to being a bastard, even if acknowledged. Like Morgaine, Kai wasn't well respected at court. But unlike Morgaine, she never met disdain with more disdain. Just pity. The narrow-mindedness of others usually only saddened her.
Oh my goodness. So in the last lore video, I just talked about how whether, like I've heard, like at first I thought Morgaine was Kai. And then in my last lore video, I said, and I was right, that I think actually Morgaine and Kai were different people. They haven't said that outright one way or the other. And many times they do give one person two identities. But I didn't think it was this case, because Kai seems so different than Morgaine. It was hard to reconcile the two, like, radically different personalities, you know. And at first I waffled on it back and forth, but I'm glad I ended up getting vindicated. But anyways, yeah, your sisters seem very different.
Morgaine was proud, and she wore that pride like spiky armor. She was also stubborn, never able to admit she was wrong. Kai was different. Softer, but not weak. Quietly unyielding, full of unwavering conviction. Sometimes I envied her for that. But most of the time I was simply grateful.
Sound like you admire her.
I do. I always have. She always stayed calm, no matter what was thrown at her. I don't think I ever saw her hesitate. When she made a decision, she was certain. I miss her presence and her counsel. Maybe things would have turned out differently if she'd been by my side.
Man, that is awesome that I was right. Very cool. All right. Man, there's so much to talk about. This is just crazy. Everything is important. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's just go down the list. The men here, what do you think happened?
I have no idea. The Menhirs were Merlin and Nimue's domain.
Nimue.
I was mostly just relieved they worked. Although I've always felt an odd sense of familiarity with them. I think they reacted to the power we now wield. The Four-Dweller element within us. But why and how? That's beyond even my understanding. But tell me, are you well? You were unconscious for a while.
feel like I don't know who I am. Don't pretend you care. Yeah, I'll say that. I feel like I don't know who I am.
I'm sorry. I know this isn't a life you would have chosen for yourself. But you've conducted yourself admirably. You're strong, and you're not alone. I know this fate was forced upon you. I know all too well how that feels. So I promise, as long as I'm here, I'll help you however I can.
Yeah, he's so cool. What was your court like?
Why? Are you wondering if I, too, had a torrid affair with a court musician? No. The only bard we had was Taliesin. He was old, smelled of stale wine, and had a beard down to his knees. I'm quite certain all those tales of his beauty came from him alone. The court itself was not my favorite place to be. The intrigues, the manipulations. At times, they almost made me long for the battlefield.
Yeah. Which, by the way, this is another thing that I kind of took liberty into assuming that he hated the court. Or like they really didn't like the intrigue, talking to people, being royalty. That was something that's kind of occasionally insinuated, but he's never really flatly said, so I'm glad that he's saying that as well. What do you think about the Grunted Temple?
A great tragedy befell the priestesses there. And to think that the strength of their faith was enough to bind a Four-Dweller. There is still so much we do not know about the true potential of the weirdness. I never imagined it could become a prison for the beings shaped by its will. But that Four-Dweller, there was something familiar about her, as if we had met before, a very long time ago. In her presence, I felt an odd sense of peace, even amid the terror that had overtaken the temple. Strange, and strangely comforting.
Okay. What do you think of Lord Yvain?
Well, the apple has fallen far from the tree. I don't see the air of Palamedes in him. His ancestor was a ruler devoted to his people. He was even capable of defying me when the situation called for it. I always respected him for that. And Yvain, I see a man trying to please everyone. That is the gravest sin a leader can commit. Decisions are never easy, but they must be made. I see that the current Lord is trying to delay that moment, and I fear it's his people who will suffer most because of his indecision. I know much time has passed. I just hope Palamedes' bloodline wasn't diluted by the carelessness of one of Yvain's foremothers.
Did people always hate the druids? Now, this is important. I'm very curious about what he's going to say about the druids and those sorts of things, because they absolutely have added the responsibilities that the druids had in this game compared to the board games. Very interested in his opinion.
No. My subjects were usually well disposed towards them, grateful for their magic. Merlin was held in high esteem by the common folk. Of course, there was mistrust at times, even open hostility, but never like this. Nobody was ever so twisted by hatred as to herd them into a giant wicker man and set them alight.
Alright, so this does confirm that Merlin was a druid. He didn't just have druid apprentices. The thing that is confusing is that they always called him a wizard. I don't know why, but they always say he's a wizard, so I I don't know. I don't know how it works, but I guess if a druid gets powerful enough, he becomes a wizard. I don't know. But anyways, but there's also archdruid, so maybe wizard is one step above archdruid, but I don't know. Anyways, do you think Niante truly wants to help people, or is it just guilt? Oh, I don't know how important this is.
Does it matter? As
Yeah,
long as
exactly.
the result is the betterment of the people, what difference does it make? Guilt is a powerful motivator, and a useful one at that. My sisters taught me that, time and time again.
Yeah. Also, by the way, something I should have mentioned about the sisters is that, so now we know Morgaine and Kai are his sisters, but routinely, Arthur has 3 half sisters. Like in traditional lore, he's not mentioning a third. There's no mention of a third, but I do wonder if there is one out there. One theory that I have heard is that Morrigan, which we're about to talk about, is that Morrigan may be the 3rd sister, and she just went truly evil and essentially became a goddess. Let's see what he thinks about the Children of Morrigan.
I was familiar with tales of secret societies, said to have come with us from the homelands. I tasked my sister, Morgaine, with investigating them. But amidst the fires of war, I had little chance to keep a close watch on her. It was only near the end of my life that I learned she herself was a follower of Morrigan. Perhaps I would have seen it as betrayal. But thanks to you, I understand now that while the children's ways may be questionable, they do seem, in their own twisted manner, to care for Avalon's safety.
I don't know. I will say that they have kind of, like the Children of Morrigan, especially in the Age of Legends, they were just evil. It was like they are just transforming people into creatures, making sacrifices. It doesn't appear any rhyme or reason beyond the fact that Morrigan wanted to be the only god in Avalon. That was her sole goal, was to be the god and have everyone followers, killing everyone who disagreed and sacrificing them. That was what they were, and again, transforming people into bat creatures. So it's like to turn them. So it's like that's what they were in the Age of Legends. So I don't know exactly what happened then. That after hundreds of years, we're in the fall of Avalon. Now the Children of Morrigan are this secret society, like Illuminati, whatever, something like that. And they're just trying to affect the things in the background. And he says that they existed in the homelands, acting that. They don't know exactly what happened, right? I mean, it seems like maybe they existed as that secret society, moved to Avalon. Maybe Morrigan became a fuller form of herself in the weirdness, and then she had these different machinations. The other thing to point out is that at the end of the Children of Morrigan quest line, you have a choice whether you want to do war or not. War or I forget what the other choice was, but the stealthy approach. And I was kind of then thinking about it. I wonder if it was the time of war at the time, and that's why she was acting very differently. Age of Legends. Maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't really know. But anyways, what do you think about Yvain's decision on the Grail quest?
It is a bold decision, and I am glad he finally made it. It was wise of him to invoke the old laws. Camelot will not dare to break them, and the men here will remain in Kuanacht, at least until the lives of its people are in immediate danger. It's an ancient lore I established myself. I am glad you chose to help him. With company like this, his mission may yet succeed.
Okay.
Even if Yvain does not return, his actions will be remembered. Of that, I am certain.
By the way, I mentioned it before about the Grail quest, but this does not happen in this way in the board games. which makes me wonder if you make a different decision if it's more in line of what happens to the board games. So about Orin, do you think Orin was truly Merlin's apprentice? Oh, he was.
He might have been, but I don't recall us ever meeting in person. Merlin had many apprentices, and Nimue was the most gifted among them, but even she never spoke in my presence. It is possible Merlin forbade his students from speaking to me, though why he would do such a thing, I cannot say. But Orin seems devoted to a cause he believes in. It's a refreshing perspective, and unlike any we've seen so far.
What do you think of the knowledge origin Orin has gathered?
Honestly, I had hoped his discoveries might help me recover some of my lost memories. Sadly, they did not. I remember what Merlin and I chose to do. I simply thought I could reconstruct the reasoning behind our decision. But it seems even Orin wasn't certain of that. I regret that Merlin didn't share his thoughts and decisions with his apprentices. They might have helped us now, on this journey.
Do you agree with Orin that you should return to full form?
I'm not ready to answer that question. And I sense the final decision won't be mine to make. You're more important than you think. And our fates are bound together to the very end. In the end, Orin's opinion may not even matter.
Man, there's still so much to talk about. Oh, man, I'm gonna talk about the First Men. That's more fascinating to me. About the Grotto of the First Men. Right. Have you encountered a construct before? If he doesn't say yes, he's a liar, by the way.
Never.
What?
Until now.
Liar.
Seeing it through your eyes.
I don't believe it.
A truly fascinating phenomenon. It only proves how little we understood about the Four Dwellers. Sadly, our encounters with them were limited to the battlefield. We knew they created helpers for themselves, but their use appeared strictly military. We saw creatures that dragged the bodies of fallen Four Dwellers off the battlefield, like great hands retrieving their dead, or living beacons that revealed the location of our camps. But this construct seems even older. It must have been created before we ever arrived, back when they could explore their lands in peace. Lands we had to wrest from them, just to survive.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying he's a liar is because in the Red Death campaign, somebody has invented constructs in Camlan. So Arthur absolutely would have seen these things. 100% would have seen these constructs because he saw them in Camlan. So maybe what he's saying in terms of never seeing them is he never saw the Four Dwellers using them. But yeah, that doesn't make too much. That makes no sense to me because they were definitively in Camlan. Did you ever suspect that anyone came to Avalon before the Four Dwellers? Which, by the way, I don't know if they're retconning it, if they're changing the lore. They didn't like it that Merlin created these constructs. Or, well, I'm saying Merlin, but I don't really know if it was Merlin too. But maybe they decided to change their mind on that one. I don't know. But anyways, did you ever suspect that anyone came to Avalon before the Four Dwellers?
We had no time for such speculation. As you know, survival in this hostile land was all that mattered to us. But now, with the construct's claim that they might have been the fathers of the Four Dwellers, it does give one pause. Who knows? Perhaps humans, too, might one day learn to coexist with the weirdness. But first, we must give them the time, so they may have a chance to find out.
Yeah, this is another one that they seem to have either changed or, like, I'm gonna have to have more more of these characters explain, because it seems repeated that the weirdness brought about the Four Dwellers, and that the Four Dwellers weren't ones that landed on Avalon, but they kind of appeared here. Whether somebody created them and they were placed here, or what exactly happened, I don't exactly know. So it is kind of weird to be like, oh yeah, no, they weren't here forever. Like yeah, there were people before them, that kind of stuff, and there may be different things that do predate them. Like there are certain times that they discuss, like these blood crystals kind of thing that is found on Avalon that may predate the Four Dwellers, but I don't know if that necessarily means that there were previous sentient beings, but it sure makes it sound that when you go to the first grotto, so I don't really know. Anyways, let's talk about the Mother Giant. Why couldn't the giants live alongside the Del Rita? Why did they have to sleep?
And what do you think would have become of Avalon if the warlike Del Rita, already revering the giants as they are now, had the chance to worship them as living, active beings? The giants were too powerful to remain among us, especially on lands gifted to the tribes of the Del Rita. There were those among us who demanded their complete destruction. That I would not allow. It was already punishment enough that they enslaved their own children and used them as a bargaining tool. I do not blame the Theod Mother for her anger. She has every right to it.
Is it true what she said about the children of the giants, that you enslaved them?
At the time, I saw no other way. We had no way to control the giants, and we couldn't allow them to form an alliance with the Four Dwellers. So we resorted to deception. The giants are cunning creatures. Had we not gained the upper hand, they would have turned on us at the first opportunity. I am not proud of it, but war follows its own cruel laws.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a quest line in Age of Legends. I think he had a choice. He absolutely did. Because what happened was that King Arthur found... So what happened was that the Four Dwellers held captive the giants' children. And King Arthur, essentially, ordered for humanity to capture the giants' children instead. Kind of like a heist, right? The thing is that I think that if Arthur would have released the children to the giants as an act of goodwill, I think that they could have had an alliance. That was possible, but Arthur decided that it was too risky. So I actually disagree with him. I think he could have made an alliance, or at the very least been like, "I'll give you your children back as long as you just don't attack us," type thing. But I don't know. All right. Yeah, the argument is getting tiresome.
It is. And you should stop asking questions when you already know the answer. That way, you won't be so easily bored.
All right. Do you have a problem with the Stagfather back in your day too? He did.
Yes,
yeah.
In the homelands. I thought we could leave him there, but he escaped to Avalon.
Escaped how?
He took on human form, or rather he used one of his followers as a vessel. It was only when he sensed that Nimue, Merlin's apprentice, had discovered his true nature that he revealed his real form. The beast grew to the size of a mountain,
this is true.
Striding toward the temple his followers had built for him deep in the woods.
I was there.
I dread to think what would have happened if he'd made it there. We barely managed to bring him down, and clearly, not completely.
Okay, he wasn't... Okay, King Arthur wasn't even there, okay, for the record.
I outlawed the Stagfather's cult, but I see that 6 centuries later, it's still around, and surprisingly, among the Dalrita as well. I thought they worshipped only Mathea.
Alright, why do you think Camelot attacked Gunvalder?
I can only assume that Camelot is no longer what I once built it to be. If it were up to me, the old agreements would still be honored. But if they went through with such an attack, then they must have had a reason. I suspect it was the need to secure resources in case the weirdness thickens. All signs point to that. The men here in Kuanacht, the assault on the Gunvalder, and we don't yet know what else they've done. Don't ask if I would have done the same. We cannot truly know what the situation in Camelot is like now.
Did you know some of the Dalrita were drinking Fordweller blood?
No. How would I? The tribes were our allies, but they commanded their own forces. The truth is, that war made monsters out of us all. The Fordwellers weren't just any normal enemy. The way they looked, the way they wielded the weirdness. To many, they seemed almost godlike. I don't condone what the Volker did, but sadly, I understand it.
I mean, it was really dire. Alright, how do you think Thrigvi managed to merge with the Giants?
That is without a doubt the work of the throne he sat upon. It is carved into the lone pillar, a very powerful artifact. More powerful than I had ever imagined. The lone pillars have long emanated a powerful energy that we never fully understood.
Yeah.
At first, we thought they worked like menhirs.
Yep.
But when they showed no such properties, we paid them little mind. And once I gifted those lands to the tribes, our access became limited. Still, I know the lone pillars once served the Giants as a conduit for the Fordwellers' will.
Yes.
When the time came for them to depart, the Giants would approach a pillar and surrender their life force to it. They believed that by doing so, they would merge with the weirdness and become immortal. And after what happened to Thrigva, I'm beginning to believe they might have been right.
Yeah, that's also a thing in the board game, but the lone pillars, I believe they're really far to the north. That is interesting, because that's like on the opposite side of the island that the Dalrita, like here, are in the words. That is interesting that they were gifted that land, because I mean something must have happened in which there had to have been a mass exodus of the Dalrita moving from the lone pillars all the way to the Forlorn Swords. Again, that's a huge trek. So I do find that interesting. They must have grabbed one of the pillars and brought it. Anyway, about the capital. What do you think of Gerfon's stance? Does war make sense?
War never makes sense.
Agreed.
It is a tool for survival. Had I refused to wage war against the Fordwellers, humanity would never have survived on Avalon.
True.
So if Gerfhanna declares war on Camelot, Avalon will once again drown in blood.
Yep.
But don't ask me what I think of it. Through your eyes, I see that Camelot is no longer the place I left behind.
What did the capital look like in your time?
When I gave the Forlorn Swords to the tribes of the Dalrita, there was nothing of substance here. A few abandoned giant caves, the occasional lone pillar. Nothing more. What stands now must have arisen after my time. And I must admit, I'm impressed with how they've made it their own. Their resilience speaks for itself.
Yeah, so with the occasional stone pillar or lone pillar, that makes me think that well, I don't know exactly what he meant about them having control of the lone pillars. Then, so I mean, there must be a location where there were tons and tons of them, because that's what you see in the board game, and then suppose there's a few scattered around the lake. Anyway, was the Alchemist Guild active in your time?
They were a young and ambitious guild, mostly centered around the Royal Academy in Camelot. We were all strangers in a strange land, with everything still to be discovered. They were vital to our survival on Avalon. Their healing potion alone saved countless lives. I wasn't there when they began to change. It pains me to see that a once respected guild has been reduced to what it is now.
Right. Were there dryads like Helid back then?
No, but there were female druids.
And druid.
Not many, though. Merlin had a few women apprenticing under him. My sister Morgaine also followed the druidic path, until she invented one of her own, of course. I don't recall the rite of passage ever having such tragic consequences. I always believed it was symbolic. Perhaps this land truly is cursed after all.
Alright, what do you think of the moot and its consequences? So I decided to not have them go to war.
Now you ask me, when it was your choices and actions that led to those consequences. Not all of the Dalrita came, and this is surely not the outcome Gurfhanna hoped for. But since you ask for my thoughts, the Dalrita united would be an unstoppable force.
I don't know.
If we wish to avoid bloodshed, perhaps it's good that not everyone followed the voice of the tribes.
Very true. That is true. Do you have the same gods back in the homelands?
Some, like the All-Mother, the Morrigan, and the Stagfather, yes. But there were many others as well. It feels like we once had a god or godling for every little thing. I suppose that kind of faith faded with time. Maybe people stopped needing gods for their small troubles when every problem began to feel larger than life.
Do you believe in gods? That's interesting.
I used to follow the beliefs of my clan, but I abandoned them long ago. I'm not one for blind, mindless faith. After that, I believed in ideas, in people. I believed anything could be achieved if you put your mind to it, especially on Avalon. Now, I'm not sure what I believe in anymore. I'd rather not talk about it any further.
Poor guy. Well, awesome. Man. We did it. Is it Croakmaw there? No. Wait, is that a... No, it's not. That's just a rock. Alright, well, that's all I really wanted to do for this episode. I know there was a lot of talking. I hope I added a little bit of context to some of this stuff. Some of it, especially the grotto. Wait, there's a question mark I missed over here? Where is it? Gimme. Wait, how do I get to that? Sorry, distraction. How do I get to this thing? There must be a cave. Ow. Something. Huh. Where do you get to that question mark? Very weird. Okay. Oh no. There might not be a way up. Worko, help me. Well, I'll just load back. But anyways, guys, I'm probably just going to end it here then. I don't want to go into the water. I'm probably going to die. But yeah, I'm just going to be ending it here. Photo mode. Alright. So yeah, I'm going to be ending it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys like the video, please leave a like. Please consider subscribing if you have yet to do so. Yeah, I hope I was able to add to some of the lore there. The grotto of the first man and the constructs, that is the main thing that I'm still trying to piece together. It doesn't quite make sense to me. The only thing that I can think of, but even though this doesn't make sense to me, but the only thing that I can think of is that the constructs that were found in Campland existed after Arthur left Camp, which sounds bizarre, but I suppose it's possible but I just don't know who would have invented that. How would they have gotten that knowledge? I'm not talking about it in the lore series, the lore saga I'm doing right now, but after Arthur left, Camlann did survive. There was something called the Red Empire that sprouted. Somebody pretended to be Arthur. He was the false king, and he kind of led Camlann into survival. They barely got by. So I don't know. It just doesn't really make too much sense to me that during that time they would have created constructs, because the only ones that you see in Camlann are ones that are essentially working shops. That's all that they really did as far as we knew. So they were able to be like money changers, whatever, that kind of stuff, cash, whatever. And they could do basic functions. So if he didn't have them, if Arthur didn't see them way back when, that means that the Red Empire, the false Arthur, had to have created them, added them, whatever. But again, that just feels very strange. If that's true, it makes me wonder if this false king was a Fordweller in disguise or something. Because it would have needed to have been a person that knew how to make constructs. And who would that be if humanity at that point had no idea? Only Fordwellers apparently have that knowledge. Very strange. It wouldn't make sense. It would feel like a misplaced priority, because you got the Picts attacking, you got the Miasma killing people, you got the Fomorians launching assaults. So why are you making these constructs to man the kiosks? Feels a little bit strange. But anyways, I'm going to be ending it here. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you. Like, subscribe. I love you. I am streaming now every other day. Love to see you guys there. And yeah, I'll see you in the next playthrough. See you later. Bye-bye.